Date Hattori, a 50-year-old farmer, lived outside the city of Osaka in the country once known as Japan. He loved tilling the soil on his tiny farm, but was fed up. As he bent over to pull another weed, he decided to carry through on his plan of treachery against the central government. The central government he had unlimited hate for. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. He had debated his illegal plan for years. His wife contracting cancer and dying a brutal death from the disease was all he needed to push forward with the plan. There was no longer a reason to worry about the possible consequences. He couldn't care less if he got caught and lost his monthly allotment of world credits. He had saved extra credits, one by one, for years, and could now survive as a rogue in the underground society of criminals and misfits. The government's refusal to give his wife the medical care and drugs she needed was immoral and scandalous. There was a cure for her type of cancer, but she was classified as a non-essential citizen. This meant that the drugs and attention she needed could only be allocated to those citizens who were deemed more valuable assets of the state. Date had no idea who these more valuable people were and didn't care to find out. All he knew was that she was the most valuable person in his life. A faceless bureaucrat somewhere within the World Council organization condemned her to a miserable, agonizing death. A death far beyond what any human should experience. The final straw was when they sent him a communique informing him that his wife qualified for a free syringe filled with a death potion. All she had to do was inject the liquid death. The syringe arrived 2 days later, along with a nondescript sympathy letter. It described how the World Council was sorry to hear about his wife's terminal illness. They wanted to do everything possible to make her death a memorable event for friends and relatives. The bastards were heartless, and he couldn't wait to strike back. Several times he considered killing her so she could escape this world and move on to a pain-free afterlife. Each time he worked up the courage to end her life, something happened to stop him. Twice she passed out, silencing the agonizing screams. A third time she begged to stay with him for a little while longer. On his final attempt, she passed away seconds before he plunged the syringe into her arm. She was now with her ancestors, and Date looked forward to when he could join her. Date kept the death potion syringe. He knew sometime in the future it would come in handy as a tool of revenge. Revenge wasn't his only reason for committing the criminal act of treason against the World Council. For years he had studied and thought about his rich family ancestry as samurai warriors. According to his great-grandfather, Date was a direct descendant of the famous samurai Hattori the Demon Hanzo, who lived during the 16th century. Hanzo was one of the most well-known and respected samurai of his time. He fought and led his forces to victory in many battles during his short life of 55 years. He served and protected the upper echelon daimyos, also known as great lords, and near the end of his life was master swordsman and protector general to the shogun for all Japan. 600 years later, the samurai code of honor and discipline still ran with fire through Date's blood. He couldn't stop thinking about resurrecting his intended position as a samurai to a great lord. It was part of his DNA, and he needed to carry through on what he was put on this earth to do. Farming was an honorable profession, but serving a great lord, politically and militarily, was more important. It was what he must do to be a complete man and honor his ancestors. Date spent hours each night studying the samurai code of Bushido. He learned how to use all the weapons. He was most concerned with dueling sword, which true samurai believed possessed their honor within the tempered steel blade. After years of study, he was qualified to become a samurai. He could now serve a great lord by protecting his land and possessions and fighting his enemies. The problem was that he didn't have any idea who this great lord would be. The power elite of society was now protected by armed guards versed in modern warfare, weapons, and military tactics. The elite of the world government in the 22nd century needed a sword-wielding samurai as much as they needed to contract a contagious disease. Date was confident his lord would reveal himself eventually and welcome his protection, advice, and loyalty. But if he had to spend a few years as a Ronin samurai until his lord became known, then that was also acceptable.